Let's continue with our discussion. We have here the unearned income. Now, when you say unearned income, this refers to the income payments received in advance, but the service for which or the goods related to the income are still to be rendered and delivered. So, kung service entity ka, nakatanggap ka ng payment in advance for services which are yet to be delivered. The same is true with goods. Goods are yet to be delivered, but the payment for which has already been received. Ngayon, yung pera na natanggap mo na yan, hindi pa yan income. That is again, an unearned income. Why is it an earned income? Because this unearned income means that you have not, from the word itself, you have not yet earned the income. Unearned income yan. Because, remember, in our accrual basis of accounting, income is earned when the services are performed. Diba? We recognize income when it is earned. And when it is earned is upon rendering of services or upon delivery of goods. Kaya, pag may natanggap na pera in advance, hindi pa naman yan income. We recognize income not when the payment for them, for the services and the goods are received, but when the income is earned. Okay? And again, kailan ba na-earn ang income? Pag na-render na ang service at pag na-deliver na ang goods. So, unearned income, pag may natanggap na pera in advance. Kailan mo ma-earn yun? Yun nga, pag nag-render ng service at nag-deliver na ng goods. And why is it considered as a liability? Ang unearned income kasi, it's not an income, di ba? And what is that? That is a liability. Why is it a liability? Because one has an obligation to perform the services in the future or to deliver the goods. And since there is an obligation on the part of the company who received the payment in advance, then there is what we call liability. Because as we recall, the liability, these are present obligation arising from previous transactions which has the probability of an economic outflow of benefits from the company. There is an obligation. And what is that obligation again? The obligation to render the service in the future or the obligation to deliver the goods. Now, what are the principles involved? But before we discuss the principles, how do you adjust? How do you adjust for unearned income? Ay, mahaba pala yun, na? Mahaba. Initial entry na lang muna tayo. What is the initial entry? Pag nakatanggap ka ng pera in advance, debit, cash, of course, pera ka natanggap eh. And credit, unearned income. This unearned income, as what I've said, why is it on the credit side? Because the normal balance of liability is credit. And that unearned income is considered as a liability. So, initial entry niya, ayan. O, anong method ito? Kasi, here, in unearned income, we have two methods also. We have the liability method and we also have the income method. Okay. So, sige, lagyan lang natin dito ng liability. Ayan. So, ganyan ngayon yung initial entry. Paano naman kapag unearned, pag income method? Di, you recognize entirely as income. Pero bago natin i-discuss ng malalim yung iba't ibang method, balikan natin yung principles. What are the principles involved in unearned income? We have three principles. You have, number 1, liability recognition principle. Number 2, income recognition principle. Number 3, accrual basis of account. Okay. Bakit meron tayong liability recognition principle? Because, as what we have said, we must recognize the liability. Every time that you receive a payment in advance, always know that that is not your income yet. That is your liability. Because you have an obligation to render service in the future or to deliver the goods. That's why there is a liability. How about income recognition principle? Now, by the time that you have already rendered the service or by the time that you have already delivered the goods, then that is the moment that we have to recognize the income. Hindi pwedeng lahat liability lang. By the time that you have rendered the service and delivered the goods, then we have to reclassify from liability to income. We have to reclassify. Kasi kailangan na natin i-recognize ngayon na may income na tayo. Because again, when is the income earned? It is earned when services are rendered and goods are delivered. How about number 3? Accrual basis of accounting. You know that already. Ba? Accrual basis of accounting, bakit ito involved dito? Because remember that we recognize income when it is earned, not when the payment for which was received. So, we recognize the income upon earning. Next, what would happen if there would be no adjusting journal entry? Di-discuss na natin ngayon kung ano yung mga iba't ibang method. Okay? So again, liability method, we entirely credit the amount received as a liability. Okay? Kaya credit unearned income. Liability siya. The entire amount received is recognized as a liability. Paano naman kapag income method? Pag income method tayo, the initial entry is that the entire amount received would be credited as an income. Cash. And then, income. So, ganito ang pagre-record sa kanya. No? Again, pag liability method, debit cash, credit unearned income because we recognize the entire prepayment as a liability, which means we have an obligation in the future to render services or to deliver the goods. Ngayon, ba't kailangan natin mag-adjust? Because at the end of the period, baka naman may na-render na service or may na-deliver na goods. Therefore, if that is true, then not all of the payments received is still unearned, are still unearned income. Hindi na yun unearned, portion of which has already been earned. That is why there is a need to adjust in order to reclassify the amount of unearned income or the amount of liability to income. Kasi kapag nag-render ka ng service at saka nag-deliver ka ng goods, edi income mo na yun. Kaya hindi totoo na lahat ay nasa unearned income pa din. That's why there is a need for adjusting entry. So what would be our adjusting entry here? Adjusting entry would be to debit unearned income. Bakit ka magka-debit ng unearned income? Kasi babawasan mo yung una mong nirecord na unearned income because a portion of it has already been earned. Kaya hindi na totoo na lahat ng yan ay unearned income. Bawasan mo. At pag binawasan mo, mag-debit ka sa unearned income. E ano naman ang credit? E di income. Bakit income? Kasi yung portion na tatanggalin mo sa unearned income, yan yung na-earn mo ng income. Diba? Kaya nga tayo mag-a-adjust because a portion of what we have initially recorded or a portion of the amount that we have received has already been earned. And once it is earned, then we have to recognize the corresponding income. That's why we have a credit to income. Now, what will happen? What is the effect if no adjusting journal entry is recorded? What will happen? Number one, the liability is overstated. Bakit overstated ang liability? Iniwan mo lahat as unearned income Nirecord mo lahat as unearned income. Totoo lang, na-render mo na yung service dyan, yung ibang service dyan, or lahat. So, hindi na dapat talaga yan unearned. Earned na yan. Wala ka ng obligation in the future to render services. Or, konti na lang ang obligation mo in the future. That's why, if you fail to provide or to record adjusting journal entry, then the liability will be overstated. What else? Liability is overstated. Ano pa? Of course, the income will be understated. Bakit understated ang income? Hindi tayo nag-record ng income Hindi natin ni-recognize the portion ng liability ay income na. Hindi ka nag-record ng income, understated ka ngayon. Kulang yung income na ni-record natin. At pag understated ang income, anong mangyayari sa equity? Or net income muna tayo. Net income or profit is understated. Bakit understated? Siyempre, di ba ang net income less expenses. So, the profit would be understated because we have an understatement in the income. And what will happen to the equity? Kung understated ang net income, understated din. Directly related sila. Because net income will increase the equity. And since the net income is understated, the equity will also be understated. Now, let's go to the income method. If we have recognized entirely the prepayment as income, what would be our adjusting journal entry? Then we have to reclass debit income. You have to reclass or reduce the amount of income initially recorded. Bakit? Di ba ni-record mo lahat as income? Pero, at the end of the period, hindi mo naman lahat na record. Hindi mo naman lahat na render yung service or na-deliver yung goods. Hindi mo pa rin income lahat ng yun. May portion ka doon na i-deliver, i-render mo pa lang. So, not all of the amount is income. You have to remove a portion of the income here to recognize the corresponding liability. That's why debit income. Then, credit what? Credit unearned income. Yan na ngayon yung liability mo. Kung hindi mo na-render lahat ang services, hindi mo na-deliver lahat ng goods, then you have an unearned income because you have the obligation to still render services in the future and deliver the goods. Okay? Debit income, credit unearned income. Paano naman kung lahat ay na-render? Kung services na-render? Di wala ka ng entry. Ba? Wala ka ng adjusting entry. Kapag lahat ay na-render mo, di maganda. Na-record mo na siya as income. No more adjusting journal entry. Correct? Because if all the income, all the prepayments has already been earned, because services were rendered or goods are delivered, then there is no more need to reclass a portion of the income to unearned income because there is no unearned income at all. However, when we're talking about liability method and all of the prepayments has already been earned or services are rendered and goods are delivered, then we have to reclass the entire amount from unearned income to income. So, anong magandang gamitin? That is why most method, the most common method used by entities is income method. Kasi, diretso na, hindi mo na kailangang mag-adjust. Diba? Debit cash, credit income. Kapag na-earn mo lahat ng income during the period, wala ka nang kailangang i-adjust. That's why they use usually the income method. They use the income method as the most common method. Kasi nga, diretso mo na sa income eh. Kung ang expectation mo is that all of the unearned portion, all of the prepayments will be earned during the year or during the period, then there is no more need to adjust. Ganon din sa prepaid expenses. The most common method is expense method. Nilagay mo na lahat as expense. Kung ang expectation mo, magagamit mo lahat yun or may expense out mo lahat during the period, then that's good. There is no more need to adjust because you have already recognized the expense in advance. Okay, what will happen now if no adjusting journal entry is recorded? Number 1, lahat in-income mo, di ba? Hindi man pala lahat income. So, what will happen to the income? Income is overstated. What else? Number 2, of course, the net income or profit is overstated. And number 3, equity is overstated. And number 4, liability is understated. Number one, income is overstated. Bakit overstated si income? Eh, ni-recognize mo lahat as income eh. Noong una, di ba? Hindi man pala lahat yan income. Na di overstated ang income mo, hindi naman pala lahat na render yung service. Hindi naman pala na-deliver yung goods. Eh, di overstated si income. Pag overstated si income, the net income is also overstated. Why? Because there is high amount of revenue or income in our books. But in fact, we must reduce a portion of it. Kaya overstated ang net income. Kung overstated ang income, overstated din si net income because revenue less expenses is equal to net income. Or income plus expenses equal to net income. And equity is also overstated because directly related si income kay equity. In equity, income increases the equity. So if the income is overstated, the equity will also be overstated. And the liability is understated. Why? Because we failed to recognize a liability. Kung hindi tayo mag-adjust in journal entry, wala tayong credit to unearned income, and that is a liability. That would be an understatement of liability. We failed to record the portion of the prepayment as liability, which wherein we have the obligation to render service in the future or to deliver the goods. So that is the effect. Now, we will be Now, let's go back to the book. There is an example. Yeah, tingnan na lang natin example dito. The following collections in advance must be properly accounted for. The amount received on for seminar fees was for training seminars to be conducted over a span of 5 months. At December 31, 2012, 56,000 was already earned. Note that we previously recorded all of the 200,000 fees in advance as income last December 15, 2012. So, anong ginamit na method? Income method. Because they initially recorded all the 200,000 fees as income. So, this is the initial entry. On December 15, debit cash, credit other income, training. That is the entry for the receipt of the fees. But, at the end of the year, ilan daw ang earned? Only 56,000 was already earned. Now, how are you going to prepare for the adjusting journal entry? Remember yung diskarte natin sa prepaid expenses. Ganun din kapag dito sa unearned income. Anong ginamit na method? Unearned income method. Income, hindi unearned income. Income method ang ginamit. So, kung income method ang ginamit, pag nag-adjust ka, anong una mong tanong? Anong kabaliktaran ng income? Liability. Liability. Ba? So, talagyan mo yung sarili mo kung ilan ang liability and yun yung i-credit mo. Yun yung i-credit mo. Or, kung ayaw mo nun, tanongin mo sarili mo kung ilan yung ibabawas sa income. Ilan ba dapat ibawas sa income? Ilan ang income mo? 56,000 lang. So, ilang portion nung 200,000 ang income talaga? Ang hindi pa na-earn. Ang hindi mo income. 200 less 56, that is 144,000. Kaya, debit to income. Bakit debit to income? Pabawasan mo nga yung income mo eh. Kasi 56 lang ang na-earn mo. Kailangan at the end of the period, 56,000 lang ang mag-appear sa account na income. That's why you have to debit a portion of the unearned income. Okay? Debit a portion of the unearned income. Kaya debit 144,000 ang other income training and credit unearned revenues 144,000 pesos. Again, bakit unearned revenues? This is the liability portion of the prepayment. Ayan, so ganito yung magiging posting. Other income, initial balance is 200,000. But there is an adjusting entry. So the ending balance is 56,000 pesos. The same with the unearned revenues. Sa unearned revenues, zero ang beginning balance niya. Pero dahil nag-adjust tayo, 144,000, that is the ending balance of unearned revenues. Yan pa pala yung unearned natin. Okay, now let us use the examples that we have discussed in prepaid expenses. But we will use these in the perspective of the recipient. Kasi kahapon, tayo yung nagbayad in advance, di ba? Ngayon, gagamitin natin ito as gamitin natin yung mga example kahapon or i-modify lang natin ng konti. Tapos, ang perspective naman ay tayo yung nakatanggap ng pera in advance. But before that, sige, kagaya ng kahapon, how do we determine the adjusting journal entry? Baba natin ito. So, to determine the adjusting journal entry, these questions should be asked. So, what should be asked? Pag liability method, ask yourself, how much is the income? So, credit side, how much is the income? Ayan. Pag liability method, di ba kabaliktaran niya? Ano bang kabaliktaran ng liability? Pag unang nag-record ka ng liability, ang kabaliktaran niya ay income. So, tanongin mo sa sarili mo, how much is the real income? At yun ang i-credit mo. You record that on the credit side. And since we have the amount at the credit side, alam mo na din yung amount on the debit side. Same lang naman yun. Except that the debit should be the unearned income. Number 2, ganito na lang. So, how much is the income? Pag alam mo na kung magkano yung income, debit the amount of income to unearned income and credit the Okay. So the question is, again, what is the question? How much is the income? Pag liability method ka, tanongin mo sarili mo, ilan kayang income dito? Kasi kung alam mo na kung magkano yung income, yun ang i-credit mo, credit income, at yun na din ang i-debit mo. Kasi kung ilan yung income na na-compute mo, yun ang ibabawas natin sa unearned income. So, yun na din magiging debit. Na? The income would be debited, but to the account unearned income. So the amount of income earned would be debited to the unearned income. Kasi yun yung ibabawas mo sa unearned income na initially recorded. Kung magkano yung income talaga, tanggalin mo sa unearned income. Para ang matira na lang sa unearned income, yung hindi pa talaga na-render na service or na-deliver na goods. And of course, you will credit income. Okay? So, you determine the income. Ilan ba talaga ang income? Oh, paano naman kapag given yung unearned income? And then, so, determine the real amount of the unearned income. So, paano pag hindi given or hindi naman sinabi yung unearned income? Ang sinabi ay the remaining balance of unearned income is this. O di gamitin mo yung information na yon. Pag alam mo na kung magkano yung balance talaga ng unearned income, anong gagawin mo dyan? You deduct the portion of the earned. And, see, so determine the real balance of the unearned income. And reduce or debit the amount earned to the unearned income. Okay. So, kung given yung unearned, sa sasabihin sa problem, the amount of unearned income at the end of the period is this. O di, meron ka ng real balance sa unearned income. So, ibig sabihin, hindi magkapareho sa initial recording at ending balance ni unearned income. So, you have to get the difference. The difference would be the amount earned. Okay? So, the difference would be the amount earned, and that would be the amount to be debited in the unearned income. Okay? Again, if the problem mentions how much is the real balance of unearned income at the end of the period, then you have to deduct the initial recording of unearned income and the ending balance of the unearned income. And the difference would be the amount to be debited or reduced from the account unearned income. And then here we will use the account. So, ulit. Alamin kung ilan talaga yung unearned income sa huli. No? You will use you determine the amount of the unearned income. Pag alam mo na kung ilan yung unearned income, ibig sabihin, ibawas mo yun, yung totoong unearned income doon sa initial mo na ni-record. At yung difference na yun yung portion na na-earn. Okay? Yun yung portion na na-earn. At yun yung i-debit or i-reduce mo dun sa account na unearned income. Paano naman kapag income method? Pag income method, ano yung tatanong mo? Hindi income. How much is the unearned? Kasi yun yung i-debit mo. Ay, i-credit pala. Income. How much is the unearned income? Tanangin mo ang sarili mo kung ilan yung unearned income. And then, debit the amount of sige, palitan natin. Nakakalito naman. Una, tanongin mo sarili mo, ilan ba yung na-earn, ilan ba yung unearned income? And that would be credited. Okay. So again, how much is the unearned income? Pag nalaman mo nung kailan yung unearned income sa income method, yun yung i-credit mo. Ito, credit mo. Pag alam mo na yung i-credit mo, yun din yung amount na i-debit mo. Except that, the account to be debited is, of course, income. Bakit income? Bakit debit to income? Kasi, kung ilan yung unearned balance, di babawas mo sa income mo. Kasi, kasi may portion pa dito sa income mo na hindi pa na-earn. Kaya pag babawas natin yun sa income, i-debit natin yan si income. So, ang tip is, lagi mo lang tatandaan na ano ba yung unearned income. Pag income method, ilan ba ang unearned? I-credit mo na ngayon yun. Tapos, pag na-credit mo na, yan na din yung magiging debit mo. Except that, the debit should be to income. Number 2, determine the balance or the ending balance of income. Or determine the actual amount earned at the end of the period. And reduce or debit the amount not earned or unearned to income and use the account. Okay, so determine the actual amount earned and reduce or debit the amount unearned to income. And we will use the account. Determine the actual amount earned and reduce or debit the amount unearned to income. And then we will use the account. Basta ganun lang din yun, no? Pag liability method, mag-a-adjust tayo. Tanong mo sa sarili mo, ilan ba yung income? Pag alam mo kung ilan yung income, yun na yung agad na i-credit mo. And, ang problema na lang, syempre, i-debit. Ang debit, ano yung i-debit mo? Di bawas mo yung portion ng income earned doon sa unearned income na account. Kaya debit, unearned income. Kasi, portion nitong unearned income, hindi naman talaga unearned. Earned na siya eh. Okay? O kung mahirap naman or hindi given yon, use the account. and determine the actual balance of unearned income. And any amount na na-earn should be reduced in this account. Income method naman. Pag income method ka, baliktaran. Tanong mo lagi sa sarili mo, ilan ba yung unearned? So, yun yung i-credit mo. Pag alam mo na kung ilan yung unearned portion or unearned income, credit mo na yon. And yung amount din na yun, ang i-debit mo. Kasi doon sa yung portion na unearned income ay kabawasan doon sa income. Dahil hindi mo naman talaga income. Yan. Pag hindi given kung ilan yung unearned income, mag-T account ka. And determine the balance of the real amount earned. The ending balance of earned income or income. And then, reduce the amount unearned to the account income. Okay. Magsagot na nga tayo ng problem para hindi na tayo nalilito. Gamitin natin yung mga problem kahapon. Only that, this is in the perspective of the receiver. Palitan natin. Okay. Mr. X received in advance the rent for 1 year amounting to 120,000 pesos on August 1. Sabihin natin, palitan na lang natin ito. Gawin natin itong July. Okay, so Mr. X received in advance the rent for 1 year amounting to 120,000 pesos on July 1, 2020. On December 31, prepare the adjusting journal entry. And then, question is, how much is the remaining asset at the end of the year? Okay. Pag ganyan ang tanong, ilan ba ang remaining asset at the end of the year? Ay, bakit remaining asset? How much is, palitan natin, how much is the rental income? Okay, again, Mr. X received in advance the rent for 1 year amounting 120,000 on July 1, 2020. On December 31, 2020, prepare the adjusting entries. And question number 2, how much is the rental income at the end of the year? Or at the end of, or on December 31, 2020. So, ilan daw ba ang rental income? Madali lang yan. Ang madaling sagutin, question number 2, ilan pa talaga ang income? Kailan siya nakatanggap? July. Tandaan nyo class, pag July nag-start, 6 months yan hanggang December. So, 6 months na ang lumilipas. July, August, September, October, November, December. So, out of 120,000 pesos na for 1 year, 6 months dyan, earned na. Ilan ang 6 months? Ilan ba ang monthly payment? 120,000 divided by 12 is 10,000. So, 120,000 divided by 12 times ilang months? 6 months. Ang earn, that is 60,000 pesos. Mas maganda siguro kung hindi pantay. Hindi, mamaya na lang. Okay, so here, let's use income method. So, income method muna unahin natin. So, what is the initial entry? Entry on July 1, 2020 is, the initial entry is debit cash, credit, income. Income method nga eh. Ibig sabihin, recognize niya as an income initially. So, income, 120,000. Then, 120,000. Okay. Now, at the end of the period, 12/31, what is the adjusting entry? What is our entry? Debit. Ano yung diskarte natin kanina? Given ba kung ilan yung income? Di ba income method tayo? So, pag income method, ano yung una natin tatanungin? Ilan yung unearned income? Ilan ba ang unearned income? Ilan bang hindi pa natin nagagamit? Di ba for 12 months yun? Ilan na ang nagamit? 6 months. So, ilan pa ang hindi nagagamit? 6 months din. Diba? Kaya, kung 6 months ang unearned, edi, yun yung i-credit mo, unearned income. Unearned income. Yun na din ang i-debit mo. Income. 60,000 pesos. You debit a portion of the unearned income to the income also. Okay? Debit income. The amount of unearned. Kasi yun yung hindi mo talaga income. Diba? Debit in the account income the amount of unearned income. So, you debit to the income account the amount of unearned. And you credit unearned income. O, madali lang. Kung alam mo na kung ilan yung unearned income, wala ka ng problema sa adjusting journal entry. Pero kung hindi naman, gawa ka ng T account. O, kagaya nito. Paano kung ang given lang ay how much is the rental income at paano kung ang given lang ay rental income at the end of the year? Sabi, the income earned is 60,000 pesos. O kung yung income earned ay given, then we have to use the T account. Ang gamit tayong T account. Gamitin natin yung format. Okay. So, income, magkano daw ang initial balance? 120,000 pesos. Mag-T account. Pag nahihirapan kayo, mag-T account kayo. Mas madali. 120,000 pesos. Ilan na daw ang earned natin at the end of the period? 60,000, di ba? Kasi this is the equivalent of 6 months. O, credit side kasi, normal balance ay credit. So, para maging 60,000 pesos yung income talaga at the end of the period, ilan ang i-adjust mo? E di mag-credit ka ngayon ng magkano? 60,000 pesos. Kasi 120 less 60, 60,000 pesos. Yan na yung adjusting entry mo. Kung ano yung debit mo sa income, yan din ang credit mo sa unearned income. Beginning balance mo ay 0 dito sa unearned income. So, naintindihan? Madali lang pag nag-T account ka. Diba? I-plot mo lang. Initially, may income ka, 120,000 pesos. Pero at the end of the period, you determine the actual amount of income. Determine mo, ilan? 6 months times 10,000 pesos. 60,000 lang pala ang income mo. So, para maging 60,000 yung income mo, ilan ibabawas mo sa original na 120,000 na record mo? 60,000. So, mag-credit ka ngayon, mag-debit ka ngayon ng income, 60,000. Mag-credit ka naman ng income na 60,000. Mag-credit ka naman ng unearned income na 60,000. Bakit i-credit yung unearned income? Because this is the portion of the originally recorded na income which is not yet earned, which is to be rendered in the future. How about if we have used liability method? Okay, if we use the liability method, what is the initial entry? Initial entry is debit cash 120,000 pesos and credit unearned income. Ito talagang ideal na gamitin, no? Liability method because that is just true. That is just correct. Initially, yung lahat na natanggap mong pera ay hindi naman talaga income. So, debit, credit mo dapat siya sa unearned income. Ito yung pinakatama. Pero, wala namang problema. Companies may use either income method or liability method. But, they must always adjust at the end of the period to avoid overstatement or understatement in the elements of the financial statement. So, on December 31, 2020, what will be your adjusting journal entry? Diba liability method tayo? Tanong mo sarili mo, ilan ba yung earned? Ilan yung income earned? Ilan yung income dito? 60,000 pesos, diba? Kasi, yun yung 6 months times 10,000 pesos. So, kung alam mo na kung ilan, kung magkano yung income earned, edi, gawin mo na yung adjusting journal entry mo. Debit, unearned income. Credit, income. So, ganun lang lagi, class. Babaliktarin mo lang kung ano yung una mo ni-record. Nag-debit ka kanina, nag-credit ka kaya ng unearned income, di ba? E di pag nag-adjust ka, i-debit mo. And then, ano magiging credit mo? Credit mo na ngayon yung amount na earned. So, 60,000 pesos. Alam na natin eh. Kinompute na natin. Yun yung 6 months times 10,000 pesos. Eh kung ayaw mo niyan, gusto mo mag-T account para mabilis or nalilito ka, pwede din naman yun. Hindi, mag-T account tayo. Okay. So, unearned income. How much is the initial entry? Unearned income is credited to 120. Credited as 120,000. Pero, at the end of the period, ilan pa talagang unearned mo? Ilan ang hindi pa nagagamit sa rent? July, di ba, hanggang December. July, August, September, October, November, December. 6 months na nagamit. So, out of 12 months, sila hindi nagagamit. 6 months din. Kaya, magkano dapat ang ending balance ng unearned income mo dito? 60,000 pesos. Correct? Now, para may 60,000 pesos ito, anong i-adjust mo? Ilang amount or anong amount dapat ang i-debit mo? 60,000 pesos din. Kasi, 120 less 60,000, that is 60,000 pesos. And so, the amount debited will also be the amount credited on the income side. Bakit? kung ilan yung unearned portion mo dito, yan yung, kung ilan yung ibabawas mo dito sa unearned income mo, yan yung earned portion. Kasi, yan yung tatanggalin mo sa unearned. Diba? Kung ano yung tinanggal mo sa unearned, yan yung earned. Kaya mga tinatanggal sa unearned income kasi yan yung portion na na-earn na. So, debit, unearned income, credit, income, 60,000 pesos. So, madali. Pag nalilito kayo, di mag-T account kayo. Kasi ito na, given na agad Pagka na-plot mo ng maayos sa T account, alam mo na agad kung ano yung entry mo. Debit unearned, credit, income earned. Okay. Next. Palitan natin to. Sabi natin, Mr. A received in advance the amount and Mr. B's payment for repair services amounting to 75,000 pesos. Tanggalin na natin yung note. Okay, so this is our problem. Mr. A received in advance Mr. B's payment for repair services amounting to 75,000 pesos. On December 31, 2020, only 40,000 pesos worth of services were rendered. Yan. Okay. Mr. A received in advance Mr. B's payment for repair services amounting to 75,000 on December 31, 2020, and only 40,000 pesos worth of services were rendered. What is the journal entry on December 13, 2020? What is the adjusting journal entry on December 31, 2020? And what is the repair service earned on December 31, 2020? And how much is the unearned repair service on December 31, 2020? Ito na lang. Upon receipt of payment. What is the journal entry upon receipt of payment? So, entry. Initial entry. So, wala na namang method na nakalagay, no? Kaya anong gagawin natin? We use both methods. Income method and liability method. Okay. So, what is the initial entry? Debit, cash, credit, income. Bakit income? Kasi income method. Nirecord daw niya lahat as income. Magkano? 75,000 pesos. Okay. What is your adjusting journal entry? Adjusting journal entry is magkano ba ang unearned portion? Anong sabi dito? Only 40,000 pesos worth services were rendered. O, hindi sinabi ko ilan yung unearned portion. Di gamit na tayo ng T account. Pag sinabi sana ko ilan yung unearned portion, madali na lang. Debit, income, and yung amount na yon, and then credit, unearned income. O dito, alamin natin. Ano sabi? Beginning balance, 75,000 pesos. Pero ang ending balance mo daw ay magkano? 40,000 pesos daw yung worth ng services earned at the end. So, 40,000 pesos. Well, ang tunay natin na income. Ba? Kung meron tayong record na 75,000 pesos nung una, ilan ang dapat na ibawas sa income para maging 40,000 pesos lang? 35,000 pesos. Ibig sabihin, ito yung unearned. Kasi out of 75,000 pesos, 40,000 pesos has already been earned. Kaya ang unearned portion ay 35,000 pesos. Kaya debit tayo sa income. Debit, income. Credit, unearned income. Magkano? 35,000 pesos and 35,000 pesos. Yan. So, yan ang adjusting journal entry. Because, first, we reduced the initial amount of 75,000 to 40,000 pesos because that is the amount of services rendered during the year. So, kung kailangan maging 40,000 pesos siya, ilan dapat i-deduct natin or ilan yung debit natin sa income? 35,000 pesos. And that the same amount is the unearned portion of the income. Kasi 40,000 lang ang na-earn mo, ilan ang tawag nun sa 35,000? Unearned income. Naintindihan? Kung expense method. Expense method tuloy. Nalito na ako. Liability method. Pag liability method, anong mangyayari? Initial entry. What is the initial entry? Debit cash, 75 credit, unearned income. Okay? Then, adjusting journal entry. Debit, unearned income. Bawasan mo yung una mong ni-record. Credit, income. Okay? So, again, di ba, unearned income, initial recording. Kung ilan yung income talagang na-earn, di ba, liability method, liability. Pero, tanong yung sarili mo, ilan kaya ang na-earn na income? Kung alam mo kung ilan yung na-earn na income, yun yung i-debit mo at i-credit mo. Okay? Kung alam mo na agad kung ilan yung na-earn na income, yun yung i-debit or i-credit mo. Eh di madali lang. Ilan yung sabi dito? How much of the services were earned? How much of the amount was earned? Only 40,000 pesos worth of services were rendered. So, meron na tayo agad sa word. 40,000 pesos debit, 40,000 pesos credit. Yan yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na pag given na agad kung ilan yung income, di yan na yung adjusting entry mo pag liability method ka. Diba? Credit income, debit, unearned income. Pero kung hindi given, gawa tayo ng T account. Di mag-T account tayo. Okay. Magkano ulit yung debit? Credit? Initial recording, 75,000 pesos. Pero sabi, ilan daw ang anong given? We have 40,000 income earned. Okay? 40,000 earned. Kung earned mo daw talaga at the end of the period ay 40,000 pesos, ilan ang dapat mo i-adjust dito? Debit ka, credit ka, ng zero ang beginning balance mo sa income eh. So, ilan ang dapat mo i-credit para maging 40,000? Di mag-credit ka din ng 40,000 pesos. Yun daw na-earn mo eh. And, the same amount would be debited to the unearned portion because this is the portion of earned already. Diba? This is the portion of the unearned income that is already earned. That's why we debit to the unearned income. And what is the balance of the unearned income at the end of the period? Ilan yung unearned? 75 less 40,000 is equal to 35,000 pesos. O, di ganun din. Debit, unearned income, 40,000 pesos. Credit income, 40,000 pesos. Ito naman. On March 10, 2020, Mr. Y, ito na, ABC Company, Mr. Y obtained property insurance from ABC Company, wherein Mr. Y paid an insurance premium good for 6 months amounting to 80,000 pesos. He initially recorded the insurance payment. Wag na yan. Palitan natin. Miss ABC initially recorded the prepayment as an income. Question. What is the adjusting journal entry at the end of the period? What is the answer? None. Bakit wala? Kasi na-earn mo na lahat. Tama ba? Kailan ka nakatanggap ng prepayment? March 10, 2020. And this is good for 6 months. So, nung natanggap mo yan, tumakbo na din ang 6 months. March, April, May, June, July, August. So from March 11 to April 10, 1 month. April 11 to May 10, 2 months. May 11 to June 10, 3 months. June 11 to July 11, July 10, 4 months. July 11 to August 10, 5 months. August 11 to September 10, 6 months. Hanggang umabot kang December 31. Na-earn mo na lahat yon. Kaya, tama lang na nasa income siya lahat. Or on December 31, 2020. Ayan. What is the adjusting journal entry at the end of the period or on December 31, 2020? Wala. Bakit? Ano bang initial entry mo? Debit cash, credit, income. O tama ba na nasa income lahat ng yun? Yes, correct. Kasi na-earn mo na siya at the end of the period. What if, assuming that the liability method was used, what is the adjusting entry? What is the adjusting entry? Try natin mag-T account. Mabilis kasi pag T account eh. Okay. Ilan yung insurance income na record nung una? 80,000 pesos. Ni-record daw niya as, ito, liability method daw ang ginamit. So, lahat ni-record niya as 80,000 pesos. At the end of the 6 months, ilan talaga ang unearned insurance? 0, di ba? Bakit 0? Wala na-earn na niya lahat. So, 0. Kung 0 yan, ilan ang dapat na i-credit? Di-credit mo lahat, 80,000 pesos. Debit. I-debit mo lahat, 80,000 pesos. Kasi, yan lahat ng yan ay na-earn na. Diba? 80,000 pesos ang na-earn dahil natapos na yung 6 months. So, yun din yung adjusting entry mo dito. So, debit insurance income, 80,000 pesos. Credit, at puro debit, credit. Mali. Sorry. Nakakalito. Lahat pala ay income mo na, di ba? Lahat ay income. Kaya, 80,000 pesos ang ending balance ni insurance income. At para maging 80,000 pesos yan, anong kailangan mo? Kailangan mag-credit ka ng 80,000 pesos sa insurance income. So, what is your entry then? The entry would be debit, unearned, insurance income, and credit, insurance income. Naintindihan ba, class? Sana, kung income method ang ginamit, walang problema kasi lahat income na eh. Nagamit mo na, na-earn mo na lahat as income. Pero dahil liability method daw ang ginamit, naka-unearned income pa siya lahat. Hindi naman totoo na unearned income pa rin lahat, na-earn mo na nga eh. Kaya, tanggalin mo. I-debit mo ngayon yung unearned income and credit the corresponding income. Then last, so, theoretical lang. Kunwari lang, ganito yung nangyari. Assuming theoretically that on September 30, 2020, Mr. Z paid 4 months in advance of advertising income. for his business to ABC company, which costs 15,000 per month. In payment thereof, Mr. Z paid a 10% note payable. Okay, which is to be paid at the end of the four-month period, or at the end of, which will be paid when all the services will be rendered. So what is the question? Question is prepare prepare adjusting journal entries on December 31, 2020. Now, let's take a look first. What is the initial entry? What is your initial entry? Debit, cash. Ikaw si ABC company. Debit, cash. Lagyan na lang natin dito. On the part of ABC company. Debit, cash, credit, unearned income. Okay, sige. Paano mo nalaman unearned income? Walang sinabi. Gamitin na lang natin dito. Income method. Okay. So, the initial entry is debit, cash, credit, income. Correct? Yes, correct. Kasi, income method nga di ba? Magkano? 15,000 pesos times 4 months. 6,000 pesos. Cash ba ang binayad? Hindi pala cash. I'm sorry. This is note receivable. 60,000 pesos. Yan. So, on December 31, 2020, so this is September 30, 2020. But on December 31, 2020, what is the entry? Debit, income. Credit, unearned income. Diba? Ganun lagi. Babaliktarin mo lang yung una mong ni-record. Debit, income. Credit, unearned income. Ganun na. Pag income method, kung ano yung ni-record mo nung una, edi tanggalin mo. And you recognize the unearned income. Okay? Credit to unearned income. So, ang tanong, ilan ba yung hindi pa na-earn? Ilan ba hindi pa na-earn? Ilan na ang na-render for 4 months? October, November, December. 3 months has already been rendered. So, ilan na lang hindi na-render? Ilan bang tunay mo na unearned income? 15,000 pesos. Good for 1 month. And that is the same amount that you will debit to the income. So, anong effect kapag nag-debit ka sa income? Yan ay, ito yung ibabawas mo sa income. Ibig sabihin, ang na-earn mo lang talaga na income ay 45,000 pesos. So, again, how are you going to prepare for your adjusting journal entry? Determine how much is the unearned income. And that would be credited. So, kung magkano yung kinredit mo, yun na dinag-debit mo sa saan? Sa income. Paano kung ayaw ko niyan? Gusto ko adjusting entry. Mag-T account. Okay lang naman yun. Advertising income. So, nalimutan pala natin si interest, no? Dagdagan natin. Okay. Sa interest naman, debit, interest, receivable. Credit, interest, income. Tama? Naalala niyo yung accrued income natin? Ilan ang interest receivable at interest income? Ilan? This is 40,000 pesos. Ay, 45. 60,000 pesos. Kasi 15,000 times 4 months times ilan yung interest? 10%. Times ilang days? 30, 31, 31. 92 over 365. So, ilan yan? 60,000 pesos times 10% times 92 over 365. 1,512.33. Ayan. Balikan natin yung mga unearned income natin. Income method. Ano method ginamit? Income method. Nirecognize daw niya lahat as income. Magkano yung initial recording? 60,000 pesos. But at the end of the year, ilan lang talaga dapat ang income niya? Income niya ay 45,000 pesos, di ba? So, kung 45,000 pesos yan, magkano dapat ang ibawas natin? Kung 45 lang ang na-earn niya, ilan ang dapat i-debit sa advertising income? 15,000 pesos. Because this is the amount that represents the unearned portion of the income. Okay? How about if we're going to use liability method? Liability method. What is your initial entry? Kopyahin lang natin. Pero hindi income ito. Unearned income. Diba? Credit should be not to earn income, but it should be at unearned income. And then, adjusting journal entry. What is your adjusting journal entry? Same. For interest, the same. Diba? Interest receivable, debit, credit, interest income, 1,512 pesos. And then, how about sa income? Anong gagawin natin? Babawasan natin yung unearned income, di ba? Kasi hindi naman lahat yun unearned. So, debit, unearned income, credit, income. O, pagka ganun lagi, pag nag-adjust ka, unearned income or liability method ang ginamit mo, nag-credit ka initially as unearned income, edi i-debit mo siya sa adjusting journal entry. And the corresponding credit would be to the income. Ilan ba ang income natin? Di ba na-compute na natin kanina? 45,000 pesos. Okay. So, yan ang ating adjusting journal entry. Pakita natin yung account. Magkano initial recording? 60,000 pesos. Pero ilan talagang unearned natin sa huli? Magkano ang unearned? Unearned portion is income. Ilan ba ang na-earn mo talaga at the end of the period? For 3 months, di ba? 3 months. Ba, September, October, November, December. And in 3 months ng 60,000 ay magkano? 60,000 times 3 over 4. That is 45,000 pesos. And for you to be able to have a 45,000 pesos at the end in the account advertising income, what are you going to do? You have to prepare adjusting journal entry. Credit to advertising income in the amount of 45,000 pesos. And that would be also your debit. Bakit i-debit mo yan sa unearned income? Kasi kung yan yung earned portion, edi tanggalin mo yan sa unearned income. Ba? Kaya i-debit mo. So, magkano ngayon ang ending balance ng unearned mo? 15,000 pesos din. So, it's all the same. Okay? So, that would be for our unearned income. Remember, pag liability method, initially they recorded it as unearned income. So, what are you going to do if you're going to adjust? You debit portion of the income earned sa unearned income and credit the corresponding income. Pag income method naman, initially they recorded it as income. Pero hindi lahat yan ay income. Kaya mag-debit ka ng income, bawasan mo yung portion na unearned and credit unearned income. Okay, so next discussion would be for the depreciation expense and the bad debts expense.